The meeting to order. This is Helen Masick. There is no gavel to wrap. The meeting came to order at 10 o'clock a.m. And at this point, board members, if you'll mute your mics. And I would like to call to Angelica to do a roll call.
Yes, ma'am. Robin Kauser. Beatrice Daniels Mills.
Present.
Helen Masick.
Here.
Patricia Negos.
Here.
And Michelle Smiley. Ms. Masick, you have a quorum.
Okay, good. Thank you, Angelica. I'd like to ask if everyone on the committee has had a few minutes to review the minutes from the last meeting. Or do you need a second to do that? Has everyone had a chance to look at them? Betty and Leticia?
I have, yes, I'm good.
Okay.
I would move to approve. This is Latricia Nigos.
Do I have a second?
I will second. This is Betty Daniels Mills.
Okay, so Leticia made the motion, Betty second to approve the minutes. Any discussion?
We do.
If not, the minutes are approved. We'll move to committee reports. We'll start with public comments. And I don't think we had public comments. Is that correct, Angelica?
No,
Okay, no public comments. So we'll move on down to staff reports. At this point, we'll start with the licensing division, and Mr. Leonard Rivas will talk to us about those areas.
bear with me for one moment.
Leonard, Mary
Oh,
Winston
I'm
here.
sorry.
You're mute.
I was talking and talking, and I'm like,
His
okay.
lips are moving. Okay.
Yeah, they were moving. Okay. So, good morning, advisory board members. Thank you for being here. My name is Leonard Rivas. I'm the licensing manager for the dyslexia program. So, I'll give you a few updates of what we're doing in licensing. Staff continue to work from home and rotate into the office, so we can process the mail certificates. We can upload more documents so staff can continue working from home, issuing licenses, processing renewals, duplicate requests, and verification letters. So that's what we're currently doing in licensing to continue processing the applications and documents for dyslexia program. So the licensing stats for dyslexia practitioner, there you have FY 2020, the total. You have the numbers for the first quarter for 2021, and then what we've processed so far for December of 2021. We've issued one new practitioner license. We renewed one practitioner renewal, and the total population for practitioners is 64 at the end of December 2021. So for dyslexia therapists, for December FY 2021, we issued 6 new licenses, renewed 42, and the total population is 920. That concludes my report. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
Are there any questions? Okay, hearing no questions, we'll move on to the customer service area, and Jacqueline Rush will give us that report.
Good morning, board members. This is Becky Rush from Customer Service. I have some recent personnel updates to share. We've had 2 CSR agents recently promoted to CSR 4 positions, which means they'll be assisting and tracking and resolving more complex customer and working on emails as well as assisting customers on phones. We're glad to have that extra level of growth and expertise in our team where they can be of even more assistance. We have recently also hired 6 new CSR agents since December 1st of 2020. And these include Spanish speakers, Vietnamese speakers, Chinese Mandarin speakers who are bilingual between their language and English. Also, since March of 2020, our entire staff continues to work from home. We have the statistics for the calls and emails received for your program for fiscal years 2020 and 2021. And those calls tend to be about initial application instructions and license status. We also get calls, if somebody needs an extra copy because they moved or they lost a copy of the certificate, if they're having technical issues, they'll call us so that we can help them out with that. Questions about continuing education. Those are the kind of calls that we typically get for your program, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, are there any questions for Jacqueline? Thank you for that report.
Thank you very
Moving on to enforcement, Chris Funderburg will talk to us about the areas there.
Thank you. My name is Chris Funderburg. I'm a prosecutor with the Enforcement Division. I'll be presenting our division's report today. First, there's some personnel updates. On December 6, 2020, Prosecutor Ken Sharp retired after 7 years of service with TDLR and 13 years of total service to the citizens of Texas. During his tenure at TDLR, Ken worked briefly on the transportation team before joining the criminal history review team, where he reviewed thousands of applications to see if the applicant's criminal records were serious enough to prevent them from being licensed. Ken was also very active in the Departments of Veterans Association, where he was both a co-founder of the organization and its first commander. On November 4th, 2020, Prosecutor Michael Shirk retired after 8 years of service with TDLR and nearly 2 decades of service to the citizens of Texas. Michael was a member of the transportation team, where his enthusiasm for public service and protecting the citizens of Texas was clearly evident. He was a joy to work with and served as mentor for many of our attorneys on staff. He will be missed, but he left his legacy of public service that will long be remembered. 3 attorneys, Amanda Barrera, Arusa Nizami, and Natalie Olvera, were promoted to Attorney 3 positions to fill the vacancies that were created by the promotions and retirements in the Enforcement Division. Amanda and Arusa's promotions were effective December 15th, 2020, and Natalie's promotion was effective January 1st, 2021. On January 4th, 2021, Arthur Oliveira was hired to fill the investigation manager's position. After he retired from the Austin Police Department after nearly 26 years of service. Since then, he worked for the Travis County Sheriff's Office and more recently served as a captain with the Texas State University Police Department. We look forward to his contribution to the success of our team as we continue to strengthen the Enforcement Division with staff that embraces our message and shares our dedication to make a positive impact serving the citizens of Texas. So at this point in the presentation, normally I'd start an explanation of the enforcement process generally, how we get cases, the role of intake investigations in the process, which prosecutor gets what case, and the methods of case resolution. You probably picked up on the common denominator here, though, cases. I don't think it's a stretch to say that most of enforcement's regulatory activities are essentially reactions to cases opened with us. Conversely, the less cases generated in a profession, the less enforcement activity in that profession, which brings us to these statistics. So the number on the far right-hand side of all 3 categories is the TDL, the total number of cases resolved, etc., across the board with TDLR. The number on the left is the number of cases that were of that type that were resolved in the U.S. profession, and as you can see, it's all 0. As such, I don't have a lot to talk about. I'm happy to. I think what it probably
That's a good thing.
I
said, I hope that's good.
Oh no, I would like to thank on behalf of enforcement. I'd like to thank your profession for displaying such excellent self-policing. It makes our job a lot easier. But if you'd like, I can go through the TDLR's performance measures to give you kind of a general sense of how cases are resolved, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. So
Okay.
we had about 10,000 cases, well, 10,500 cases opened last fiscal year, 9,763 of those closed. Average time to close was about 150 days, 160 days. Number of cases resolved within 6 months, about 70%. The number of resulting in disciplinary action, that means a case that ended either with a order of the executive director or of the commission that oversees TDLR's activities, was about 13.48%. A number of cases pending, 5,850. And if we'll scroll down to the number of sources of cases open in fiscal year 2020, you'll see that it's consumer is the bulk of the numbers, and criminal history and departmental, that is in-house via inspectors or investigators, are about share the other half of the pie. And case outcomes, and again, this is going back to that distinction I was making between cases resolved by formal activity, formal order, and cases that are basically resolved by an enforcement division. You can see there are 28 of those commission orders this year, 339 default orders, 853 agreed orders, an agreement between the respondent and the department to resolve a case. Penalties assessed about 2.4 million, penalties collected about 1.3, licenses revoked 62, licenses suspended 4, licenses denied revoked based on criminal history as opposed to administrative action 200 or administrative action on the license 240, cease and desist orders 46, and this is the other class of case outcomes, the informal resolution, which could be a dismissal or warning or some other method of enforcement's choosing. That's 365. Otherwise, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, but that would conclude enforcement's report.
Are there any questions for Mr. Funderburg? Okay, thank you for your information.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the Regulatory Program Management Division, and that will be Mary Hoffman will give us that report.
Good morning, committee members. My name is Mary Hoffman, and I'll be providing the Regulatory Program Management Division report for you today. I have a couple of personnel updates that I'd like to share. The Medical and Health Professions section recently had 2 vacancies in our section, which have been filled. Angela Sanders and Sean O'Neill both have joined our team on February 1st, 2021. Angela worked for TDLR since 2017, and Sean O'Neill has been with TDLR since 2005, and we're so happy to have them join our team. We have some current projects that our section is working on. The TDLR Health Occupations Annual Report was submitted to the Texas Legislature on February 1st, and the committee members should have received an email with that report early in February. The report is also posted to the agency website under agency reports as well. Staff have been working also on rule review projects for 6 of our medical and health professions programs. That rule review happens every 4 years. We have also been working on drafting emergency rules to be enacted if a disaster declaration is issued by the governor's office. Staff have also been reviewing bills that have been filed with the 87th Texas Legislature. We continue to work on the Texas licensing system as well. And medical and health professions staff, Stuart Myrick and Steve Eager, continue to work at the Texas Division of Emergency Management at the SOC. Unfortunately, the medical and health professions staff have been unable to attend any in-person conferences or events due to the COVID pandemic. However, we are available to attend virtually, so please contact me if you have any events that you'd like us to attend. And the volume 13 of the Health Monitor was distributed in early February as well. That was sent out to any of the subscribers for our medical and health professions programs and is also posted to each program page. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Ms. Hoffman? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on Our next report is the executive office, and that's Christina Kaiser.
Good morning, Madam Chair and advisory board members. I'm Christina Kaiser. I am one of the deputy executive directors here at TDLR. My area of responsibility is regulatory services, and I'll be happy to provide the executive office report for you today. I'm just pulling up some notes here. So one of the items we wanted to update you on is the agency's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. As you might suspect, our response has been an exercise in complex problem solving. We have been learning as we go in an environment that changes daily and based on knowledge and information that is growing daily, and kind of finding our way as we go, as all other organizations in the country have been doing as well. Safety has been our top priority, not only for our employees, but also for the people we serve. I would say that generally our response has been in two parts. There's been an inward-looking response focused on our staff, and then an outward-looking response focused on our licensees and the public that we serve. So in terms of the staff level response, as some of the other reports have already indicated, we started working from home in mid-March of 2020 for those employees whose work can be accomplished in a remote setting. We do still have a staff presence in the offices of TDLR here in Austin, both of our office buildings, because some people's jobs simply are not amenable to being performed in a remote setting. And so we have people rotating in the office, and trying to maintain spacing between employees as much as we can to keep the situation safe. And we're, of course, have very thorough safety guidelines in place for folks while they're in the office, you know, masks and distancing and other requirements to keep people as safe as we can. We stopped last year when we went to the work from home setting. We stopped all inspections and field investigation type activities at the same time. We restarted those a few months later in June on a reduced basis. We took that time in between to sort of figure out what our safety protocols are for our folks out in the field. And we still have certain locations that we're not going into in the field right now because of the level of COVID. Like, for example, we look at hospitalization rates and various other statistics to help us identify the areas that are perhaps not quite as safe, not only for our staff people, but again, for the possibility of us going into a situation and spreading the virus to the people we regulate. As Mary indicated, we did stop all non-essential travel, and that included travel to conferences and other industry types of events. We are participating in those as much as we possibly can remotely. We also canceled all in-person public meetings, including commissions, meetings, advisory board meetings, and the like. We have definitely found our way with holding those meetings in an online platform. My best guess is that we've done about 40. Mary or Angelica could probably give you a more precise number, but over the year, we have definitely learned a lot about holding public meetings in a remote setting. Our outward-looking response for our regulated industries, I would say the biggest thing we've tried to do is be a conduit for our licensees, follow developments such as orders issued by the governor or local jurisdictions, and sharing that with our licensees as much as possible. We created a space on our website to share information about developments, and actually we've put information relevant to each regulated program on that particular program page. So if you go to the Dyslexia Therapist page on our website, you will find some information about waivers that were relevant, or other actions that were relevant to your program in particular. part of the outward-looking response also was seeking approval from the governor for waiver of certain regulatory requirements to make life easier for our licensees as they try to navigate this moment. Some of that included waiver of continuing education requirements for a time, waiver of certain inspection requirements for a time, and waiver of provisions that would prevent telehealth type of practice for our health-related professions. We are still, I would say still today, very much in the same posture of learning as we go. And we're feeling cautiously optimistic about what we've learned about how to keep ourselves safe, and we're still marching forward. Let's see, another item on the agenda that I wanted to brief you about is the agency's sunset review process. So as you probably are aware, TDLR has been under review by the Sunset Commission for about 1.5 years now. Our review began in September of 2019. The point of a sunset review is just to determine, is the agency still relevant? Are we still adding value to the state of Texas for the purposes that we were originally created for? So during the review, Sunset Commission staff had many meetings with TDLR staff. They came and immersed themselves in our world, learned about how we do things, and also took that opportunity to identify any areas of concern. So the Sunset Commission staff issued their report of recommendations in June of last year. The report, if you have had a chance to look at it, the report contains 2 types of recommendations. Recommendations for statute changes, which to become effective would have to be put into a bill and passed through this current legislative process. And then there are also recommendations for management actions. And these are things that TDLR can just do on its own on the ground, just by correcting or modifying our own processes. Now, the publication of the Sunset Staff Report is certainly not the end of the process. It is, thank you, Mary just sent me a note. There have been 33 advisory board meetings as of today, and that's advisory boards only. That does not count commission meetings. There have been at least 5 or 6 commission meetings in the last year. 8, thank you, Mary. As I was saying, the Sunset Staff Report being published by the staff is definitely not the end of the process. There are still many more steps. There was a public hearing by the full Sunset Commission in December, where the Sunset Commission heard testimony about our report. And there was a decision meeting by the Sunset Commission in January, where the Sunset Commission actually voted on the recommendations offered by the Sunset staff. And as I said, even then, that's not the end of the process, because the statute change recommendations that the Sunset Commission voted to adopt now have to be put into the form of a bill and filed in the legislative session and actually passed after it moves its way through the legislative process. As of yesterday, our Sunset bill had not been filed yet. Someone please correct me. That happened since then. But I can tell you, under issue 1 of our staff report, a big and important recommendation for our purposes is that Sunset recommended to continue TDLR in existence for 12 more years. So we're very thankful for that. Your program was not specifically included in this Sunset review because of the time at which your program came to TDLR. This review was focused more on the legacy programs that had been at TDLR for a longer period of time. And so while it doesn't have direct relevance to your profession, it's definitely a big thing that's happening in our world. And I would recommend that you take some time and review the report and just get a sense of what's important to the Sunset Commission. Are there any questions about that, about the Sunset process, before I move on to the next topic?
This is Helen Masick. I have one question. Since the dyslexia area wasn't part of this sunset review, will our area not be reviewed then until the next sunset committee review?
Well, funny you should ask. So one of the original recommendations of the Sunset staff is that TDLR's health-related professions be reviewed 2 years from now. Now, when the Sunset Commission voted, the Sunset Commission stripped that recommendation out of the report. And so if the Sunset Bill passes as recommended by the Sunset Commission, then what you said is correct, that these programs would then be reviewed in the next Sunset Review cycle, which would be 12 years from now. So that would be helpful to TDLR because the Sunset Review is a huge undertaking, and we do have a lot of work to do at the end of this first review process that we've undergone. Any other questions? Okay, so another item on our agenda is just to talk a little bit about the legislative session, which is underway right now. It began in January. We are tracking bills that are of interest to us as an organization or to the professions that we regulate. We're currently tracking 172 bills. That is the count as of this morning, and that list grows on a daily basis. I have to give recognition to Jeff Kopus, who is in our Office of Strategic Communication. He does an excellent job of scouring all the bills that get filed each day and picking out the ones that are of interest to us. Bills that are of interest to our licensees are actually listed and referenced on TDLR's website. When you go to the main web page, there is a little square right in the middle. It's hard to miss. There's a picture of the Capitol, and I would share my screen and show you, but I'm not very good at doing that. I'm not very good at figuring out how to stop sharing, so I'm not going to do that. But it's hard to miss. It's right in the middle of the web page, and when you click there, you can scroll down and find. I think there are 11 bills listed currently that relate specifically to your profession. So currently, the big thing that's happening over at the Capitol is that the Senate Finance Committee and the House Committee on Appropriations are holding hearings right now with the various agencies about their budget requests. TDLR will be very busy in that regard next week. We have hearings with Senate Finance on Tuesday, the 2nd of March, and then right around the corner on Wednesday, the 3rd, we will be before the House Appropriations Subcommittee that relates to Article 8 agencies, which include TDLR. And so I would say that this report about the legislative session kind of relates back to my earlier report about the COVID response. The legislature, like any other organization, has been finding its way and figuring out what they need to do to be able to conduct their business in a safe manner in the middle of a pandemic. And we have been observing they are holding hearings in person. The Sunset Commission actually held all of its hearings virtually with great success. The committees that we've been observing currently are holding hearings in person, but I think to some extent they might opt to use virtual settings as well. So we're just sort of taking a wait and see attitude with that. The legislative session runs through May. So there's a lot of action still to happen. The last thing I wanted to mention, and I hope Angelica has these statistics. I'm sorry I didn't talk to you about this before, Angelica. The outreach statistics for your program. We like to share this with you and just show you the extent to which people from your profession or just the public in general are viewing your specific area on TDLR's website. So over the past 6 months, from July through January, the Dyslexia Therapy website has had 8,208 views. That's an average of 45 a day. And then we also like to tell you what kind of device the people used to access the website. 58% used a desktop computer, 41% from a smartphone, and 2% from a tablet. And then listed there are the top reasons that, or the top things that people were looking for when they were visiting your webpage. Applying for a license being number 2 on the list, probably not surprising. And then continuing education information being number 5. That concludes my report for the executive office. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Are there any
Thank you,
questions?
Angelica.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to Karen Cox, who's going to give us an overview of a process of becoming an expert witness.
Good morning, and I will go very quickly to my PowerPoint slide. I'm going to share my screen, and I want to encourage everyone listening who is an licensee in this program to consider being an expert, because we do use them even though we don't have a lot of complaints in this case. We need experts to help us evaluate cases. And let's see. Let's hope I can do this correctly. Dadgummit. Okay. Sorry, it's not letting me look at my own PowerPoint. Okay. Yes, technology and its discontents. What I'm trying to do right now is show the slideshow. So let me stop sharing for a second. Go to the slideshow and see if I can make it work correctly that way. And by the way, I did rehearse this so that it worked an hour ago. Okay, now let's see if I can make this work now. This is the beginning. It's the subject matter experts in enforcement. Can everyone see this now?
Yes.
All right. First thing I want you to know is, what is an expert witness? And an expert witness is, under our rule in the let's see, is it I'm hoping I'm going to be able to make this go to the next one. I'm sorry, my screen is not letting, WebEx is not showing me the PowerPoint. It's only showing me my screen and my face and everybody else's. So let's see, we can go to the next one. What is an expert witness? Is it showing this now?
No.
Okay. I'm sorry to do this after we had rehearsed it. Angelica, can you, if I send you this slideshow, can you do screen sharing for me? Because I thought this would work this way, and it's not letting me do the same problem that it's not letting me do anything except show my own face or change the, and it's not letting me change the slide.
Let me see if I can get it up real quick. Can I get you to stop sharing real quick?
Yes, let me do that. And I want to apologize to the advisory board and everyone else, because this is new. It had not done this before. All right. Angelica, I'm going to email you the file.
I have it. Just give me one moment and I will get it.
Okay, but let me email you this one because it's been edited a bit this morning by Chris Rusty. So you have.
Chris Rusty just sent me one. Is that not the correct one?
That's the one I sent to Chris? Yes, that is the correct one.
Thank you, Chris. He's always in the background helping out.
Yes, thank you, Chris.
We can't see everyone, but everyone's working, so no worries.
All right. Can you see it?
I'm still just seeing faces. I'm not seeing the screen.
It shows sharing on my side.
I can see it. This is Helen.
Yeah.
Okay, in that case, I'm going to give the speech using my screen and have Angelica follow along. All right. First thing, this is, of course, the expert witnesses, subject matter experts, and their role in the TDLR enforcement cases. What is an expert witness? This is Rule 702 of the Texas Rules of Evidence, and it says that an expert witness is someone who is qualified by knowledge, skill, experience, training, or education. And if their testimony would help the trier of fact. Expert witnesses are allowed to give opinions as opposed to just fact testimony. And this rule, of course, is designed for hearings and trials, so it refers to the trier of fact, but we use the expert witnesses in a bit broader area. And let's go to the next slide, which is the Occupation Code 51.252E. This allows TDLR to contract with expert witnesses. We use both advisory board members and people from the industry, and we use them in several different capacities. First is, of course, conferences. The big one is item 2 down there, which is reviewing complaints and documents in cases when we get a complaint, and then issuing reports. There's also trials and helping us to find out if we should open a case at all. We are allowed to, let's go to the next slide. Experts in our area do have immunity from private lawsuits. This provision in the Occupations Code says that outside of fraud, our experts can't be sued for giving an opinion or helping in a hearing and helping us evaluate a case. That's an important element. So how do we pick experts? Let's go to the next slide. We use advisory board members and we contract with members of the public. All expert witnesses will complete a questionnaire and return it, and that includes we have a sample question later, but it's a fairly lengthy questionnaire that asked about your experience, your education, and some other information necessary to find out your background to see if you qualify. Then we screen each expert witness who returns a questionnaire to find out if they have a history of enforcement actions, and exclude anyone who does. So next slide. And if we give a training to all experts once they're selected. For advisory board members, members of the advisory board have been selected and appointed by the governor because of their expertise in the field and interest in maintaining the integrity of the profession. Members of the advisory board can't receive extra compensation for appearing as an expert witness. We don't pay you if you're an advisory board member, but we also prefer advisory board members because of their special background, special relationship to the agency. And go to the next slide. This contract experts will ask people in the industry and industry organizations, and they will recommend us people who are exceptionally good. After we screen that, then the finance division screens experts. We do the enforcement screening. The finance division has to screen contract experts for state of Texas contracting requirements. This is things like, do you have a tax ID number? After the potential expert has passed the enforcement screening and finance screening, then we issue a contract, and the contract allows us to pay these experts. This is an example of some of the questions we use in the initial application. It's list your education, list some of your experience, and includes some of your publications. Let's go to the next slide. Some more experts after the screening has been completed. We give the expert a short training over the enforcement process, and we do that for all of our experts. Before each individual specific case, once you're on our rotation as experts, when your name comes up and we want to refer a case to you, we do further screening to find out if you have any relationship with the participants in a case. We want to make sure that we don't use an expert to give an opinion who is biased in favor or against a particular participant. After you clear that, it's called conflict screening. Then we will send the documentation in the case to you through a secure method, which we cover in our training, and then you review that and make a report. So let's go to the next one. And thank you. That concludes the brief training on expertise. And we cannot do our job without you. It is extremely important to the agency to get experts that we can use. Our mission is, of course, to protect the citizens of Texas and your profession, and we can't do it without your expertise. So thank you very much, and that concludes my slideshow. And thank you, Chris, and especially Angelica, for helping me deal with my failures of technology. Do you, board members, anyone, do you have any questions about this process?
No. Thank you for the
Thank you very
information.
much.
Okay, we'll move now to the discussion and possible recommendation on the proposed amendments to existing rules in the administrative code, chapter 120 through 120.9 regarding dyslexia therapy. And Angelica, do I go through that?
This is Derek Burkhalter. I'll cover this agenda item for you.
Okay, great. Oh, I see. I missed your name there. Thank you.
No problem. So I am the Assistant General Counsel assigned to this program for TDLR. And so if you'll remember at our last meeting on October 27th, we discussed these proposed amendments in detail. And ultimately, the committee recommended that the proposed changes be published in the Texas Register. And that publication occurred on December 4th, which began a 30-day public comment period, which ended on January 4th. We received no public comments concerning these rules. However, staff did identify a possible change, and I wanted to bring that to your attention. Hopefully you can see the screen that I've shared. So you can see in the red text here, these are the proposed changes that staff is recommending. So rather than actually name the test that is administered by ALTA, we thought it would be better to replace that language with just specifying the therapist level examination administered by ALTA, and then in part B, the practitioner level examination administered by ALTA. And that way, if the name changes in the future, we don't have to amend our rule to reflect that change, or if ALTA changes its test, then we're automatically matched up to it without any need for future rule change. So that was the only change to the proposed publication that staff is recommending. Otherwise, all the changes remain the same. And we discussed those in detail in the last meeting, but I'm happy to go over them again if I need to. Other than that, I'll go ahead and open it to any discussion or any questions that you may have. And I'm just scrolling through a little bit so you can kind of be reminded of what these changes are.
This is Latricia Nigos. I had a question about procedure. So if we agree to the changes on the name of the examination to encompass, any examination that ALTA gives, does that have to go back through the process again?
No, and that's a really good question. In this case, it would not have to because it's not really a change in substance. If it's just a minor change, and we would consider this a minor change, then we don't have to start over through the process. We can just make the recommendation here. If it was a change in substance, like if it affected additional people or if it imposed an additional burden on the public or licensees or anything like that, then we probably would have to restart the process. But for little minor changes like this, we don't have to. We can just make the change here and keep going forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Were there any other changes or any other questions, or do I need to go over any of the other changes just to remind you what we're doing?
I'm fine. This is Helen Masick. I'm fine with, we've had the discussion last time, so I don't have any other questions.
Okay, and if there are no questions or further discussion, at this point, it would be appropriate to have a motion to recommend that the commission adopt these rule changes at a future meeting.
Okay, I have a recommendation. Do I have a motion?
Betty Daniels Mill, I motion.
Okay, we have a recommendation and a motion that we approve the changes as recommended by the TDLR. Do I have a second to the motion?
This is Latricia Nigos. I'll second the motion.
Okay. Any discussion about the changes? Okay, we'll ask Angelica to do a poll of the members for a vote.
Yes, ma'am. Beatriz Daniels Mills.
Yes.
Masick
I approve.
Yes.
and Patricia Nietos.
I approve.
Your motion passes, Mr. Masick.
Thank you. Okay,
And so that concludes this agenda item. As I said, these rules will be presented to our commission at a future meeting. It won't be at the March 3rd meeting because we've already submitted all the materials for that meeting, but we will bring these rules at the next meeting, which may be in April. And then after that, we would file the adoption paperwork with the Texas Register, and the rule would be effective no less than 20 days after that date.
20 days after it's published in the register.
20 days after, yes, after we filed the adoption paperwork with the register, correct.
At this point, thank you for your report there and help with that process. Derek, we'll move on to the next item, which is the recommendations for agenda items for our next committee meeting. Do any of you have recommendations or something that we need to discuss for our next committee?
This is Latricia Nigos. And I'm not sure if this would be appropriate for an agenda item or maybe a work group. I do know that ALTA has made a lot of changes in the last few months. One of which is they declined their membership into MSLEC, which, if I'm not mistaken, help Colin correct me if I'm wrong, but this would be one of the it would be oversight for ALTA, and so that does impact our profession, and there may be no changes needed, but be something that would be prudent for this group to take a look at and just make sure that we are comfortable with the oversight that's in place.
And thank you, Leticia, for that. I have that question too, because the MSLEC organization is the organization that accredits the training centers that train teachers in the areas that are required. And since ALTA has withdrawn their membership with that group or changed their association, I don't know how we're going to put it. I don't know details about that. I just know, like Leticia, that has happened. So maybe that would be something for a committee, at least, that we need to investigate or talk about and get more information about. As far as TDLR, have y'all had discussions with any of the ALTA leadership? I guess that maybe could give insight to us as advisory committee members.
This is Mary Winston. I am not aware unless someone from RPM has any other knowledge that we have had any conversations. But if this is something, sounds like it affects the profession that we want to discuss at a future meeting, we'll work out how we need that item to look or what we need to do to prepare, but we can definitely look into that for a future meeting.
And Mary, I just wanted to jump in. We have not heard of any of those changes mentioned, but we will look into it.
Okay.
So at this point, do we leave that up to you as TDLR to check with ALTA?
So if you all have something, Mary Winston again, that's some info that you have come across, that would be great. Mary Hoffman is here, and if there's something out there that's happening, let us take a look so we can kind of get an understanding agency-wide of what those changes are, if they actually withdrew, or how that affects you guys, and we'll be in contact from our end. Now, if there's something you all find out, please let us know.
Okay.
But you've given us some homework that we can look into to see if there is an issue or a change that would affect your profession.
I mean, the specifics of what the training should consist of, that is part of the TDLR information for therapists and practitioners, comes from MSLEC.
Okay.
So that's why I think we're questioning the fact that that association looks like it's changed at the leadership level in ALTA, but we're not involved at that leadership level, so we don't have details of it. We're just hearing that has happened.
Okay, we can take a look at that to just see if something has changed that we need to be aware of, and we can bring that back to the board.
Okay.
Mary Hoffman. Also, if you have any information that you would like to email me so that I know specifically what I need to look into and what the concerns are, it would be helpful to have that information from you.
Okay, I will look and see what information I can put together to send to you.
Thank you very much.
And Mary Winston again, if we don't have other topics of interest at this time, as always, you can send those in to us later at advisory.boards@tdlr.texas.gov, and we can get those on the roster at that time or as agenda items at that time. So no rush. If we don't think of anything right now, we have time to get that, because it's going to also be my suggestion for the next agenda item that we have. I'm scrolling through. Discussion of time, date, and location for next committee meeting. It's going to be my suggestion that we poll the board for that date as well, because we've taken care of some business today that needs to be taken care of, and now our general counsel's office can move forward to our commission. Other than that, I don't know of any pressing matters that we need to get on board right now. And the legislature is in the middle of session, and I don't know that we need to schedule something right now for the board. I think it would be most appropriate to poll the board, have us call you and get dates at a future time, and Helica would be doing that.
Okay. So then we won't set a date at this point.
Perfect.
Okay.
So I have shimmied my way from H and I on the agenda.
Okay, so the final item then, I guess, is adjournment. If there's no other items or information, we'll consider the meeting complete and adjourned at 10:54 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you.